You ever find yourself reaching for your phone without even thinking about it? Or driving home and suddenly realizing you don't remember the last few miles? Well, it turns out a massive chunk of our lives is run by these automatic behaviors we call habits. So today, we're going to break down the science of how they're built, why they're so powerful, and this is the best part, how you can actually take the wheel and change them. Okay, so take a look at this quote. It's from a woman named Lisa Allen. She was part of this big study at the National Institutes of Health. And not long before she said this, Lisa was smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day. She was deep in debt, overweight. Her life was, well, a mess. And then, somehow, in just a couple of years, she completely turned it all around. And the wild part? She wasn't the only one. So the big question is, right, how does someone do that? How do you change that much, that fast? The scientists looking at her case knew it wasn't just, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. It wasn't a fluke. They realized she must have stumbled onto something fundamental, almost like a hidden user manual for the human brain. And that secret, that core mechanism, it's called the habit loop. And this simple little neurological loop is the secret engine behind a huge part of what we do every single day. Most of the time, it's running completely on autopilot. We don't even know it's happening. See, our brains are kinda lazy. In a good way. They're always looking for shortcuts to save energy. So whenever they can, they take a routine, bundle it up into a habit, and tuck it away in this old, ancient part of the brain called the basal ganglia. Think about it. That's exactly why you can back your car out of the driveway while you're thinking about what to make for dinner. Your brain's not focused on the driving. The habit loop has taken over. So what does this loop actually look like? Well, scientists at MIT figured out it's a super simple 3-step process. First, you've got the cue. That's the trigger that tells your brain, okay, time for autopilot, and which habit to use. Next comes the routine. That's the action itself, whether it's physical, mental, whatever. And finally, you get the reward. This is the part that tells your brain, hey, that was worthwhile, let's file this away for later. And get this, every single habit you have, from brushing your teeth to checking Instagram, follows this exact 3-part structure. And you can literally see this energy saving happen in the brain. Look at this. Researchers put some rats in a maze and watched their brain activity. The first time through, the rat's brain is firing on all cylinders the entire time. It's working hard, right? But once the habit of running the maze is learned, boom, look at the second chart. The brain activity just drops flat during the routine part. It only spikes at the beginning, for the cue, and at the end, for the reward, the chocolate. The middle part, the actual running, it's become totally automatic, effortless. Okay, so a cue, a routine, a reward. Simple enough. But it turns out there's another ingredient, a missing piece of the puzzle that makes a habit really, really stick. For a habit to become truly locked in, your brain has to do more than just enjoy the reward. It has to start craving it. The story of Febreze is just a perfect example of this. When it first launched, it was a total bomb, a failure. Procter & Gamble thought the cue was a bad smell and the reward was, no more bad smell. But that's not rewarding enough. It's not craveable. The genius move was when they flipped the script. The cue became finishing a cleaning routine, like making the bed. The routine was spraying Febreze. And the reward? That clean, satisfying scent. It became a little mini celebration. And suddenly, people started craving that little finishing touch. And scientists saw this exact same thing happen in the brain of a monkey named Julio. Check this out. In the beginning, Julio's brain would light up with pleasure after he got his reward, a little sip of juice. Makes sense. But as the habit got stronger, something amazing happened. The pleasure spike shifted. It started lighting up before he got the juice, right when he saw the cue. His brain wasn't just reacting to the reward anymore, it was anticipating it. And that anticipation, that's the neurological definition of a craving. So this right here is the golden ticket. The cue doesn't just launch the routine. It has to fire up a craving for the reward that's on its way. That craving is the glue that locks the whole loop in place. It's the reason a simple buzz from your pocket creates this powerful, almost irresistible urge to check your phone. You're not just reacting, you're craving that little hit of social connection or new information. All right, so now we get the what's and the why. We understand the machine. So the big question is, how do we get in there and start tinkering? How do we use this to change the habits we don't like? Because here's the thing, you can't just erase a bad habit. It doesn't work that way. You have to write a new one over it. And that brings us to what's known as the golden rule of habit change. This is the master key. The trick isn't to fight the old loop, it's to hijack it. You keep the old cue, you give yourself the same reward, but you consciously squeeze a new routine in the middle. I'm telling you, this one idea is at the heart of pretty much every successful change program you can think of, from Alcoholics Anonymous to elite sports training. Let's make this real. A grad student named Mandy had been biting her nails her entire life and wanted to stop. So she did some detective work on herself. She realized the cue wasn't just boredom, it was a specific feeling of tension in her fingertips. And what was the reward she was craving? Not chewed up nails, but a quick jolt of physical stimulation. So she used the golden rule. Same cue, fingertip tension. Same reward, physical stimulation. But she swapped out the routine. Whenever she felt that tension, instead of biting, she'd just rub her arm or squeeze her fist. It gave her the stimulation she craved, but without the damage. And it actually worked. Now, for some of the really tough habits, the really powerful ones, like addictions, the golden rule sometimes isn't quite enough on its own. There's one more piece, and studies of incredibly successful programs like AA found it. It's belief. You have to genuinely believe that change is possible. And often, that belief gets its spark and its strength from being part of a group, a community. That's what helps the new habits stick around when things get stressful. All right, we're at the final and maybe most powerful secret. It turns out that not all habits have the same weight. Some are more important than others. Think of the keystone in an arch, that one stone at the top that holds the whole thing together. Well, there are keystone habits, and when you change one of them, it sets off this incredible ripple effect that can remake everything else. This story is amazing. Back in 1987, a new CEO named Paul O'Neill takes over Alcoa, this massive industrial company. He gets up to give his first speech to investors, and everyone's waiting to hear about profits and synergy. Instead, he says his number one priority is worker safety. Wall Street totally freaked out. They thought he was nuts, but O'Neill knew something they didn't. He knew you can't just order a company to be better. You have to find and change one single keystone habit. So what happened? What was the result of this bizarre, obsessive focus on safety? This. $27 billion. That's the increase in the company's value while he was in charge. Just let that number sink in for a second. By focusing on the one thing that seemed to have nothing to do with making money, he absolutely transformed the company's fortunes. It was the ultimate, real-world proof of the keystone habit. So how on earth does focusing on safety lead to that kind of success? It's the ripple effect. Think it through. To make a plant safer, you have to understand why accidents happen, which means communication between workers and bosses has to get way better. To prevent accidents, you have to fix or replace old equipment, which, oh, hey, also improves the quality of what you're making. Fewer injuries means you're not losing productivity or wasting materials. All of these other good habits just started to flourish, all because they focused on that one keystone habit of safety. It built a culture of excellence, one small win at a time. Okay, look, this stuff is not just for huge companies or famous athletes. The real magic here is that this is a practical, usable guide. It's a framework that you can use right now to start re-engineering your own life. So here it is, your 4-step plan to take control. Step 1, identify the routine. What's the exact behavior you want to change? Step 2, experiment with rewards. You have to figure out what you're really craving. Is it the afternoon snack, or is it just the 5-minute distraction from your desk? Step 3, isolate the cue. Be a detective. The moment the urge hits, ask yourself, where am I? What time is it? What's my emotional state? Who's around? What did I just do? That's how you pinpoint the trigger. And finally, step 4, have a plan. Literally write it down. When I see the cue, I will do this new routine. Making that conscious plan is how you grab the steering wheel back from your brain's autopilot. When you boil it all down, all the science, all the stories of people like Lisa and companies like Alcoa, it all comes back to this one powerful idea from the philosopher William James. Your habits are not your destiny. They are not set in stone. They are choices. And that belief, The will to believe that you have the power to change, well, that turns out to be the most important ingredient of them all. So I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on. What's your keystone habit? What is that one thing, that one small change that if you made it, could trigger a cascade of positive change throughout your entire life? The science says it can be done. Now you have the roadmap. The choice is yours.